Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. In occupied Kashmir, Indian troops have martyred two more Kashmiri youths in Rajouri district. The occupying forces wounded another civilian during a military operation in the Nowshera area. The valley has been under New Delhi's crushing curfew and communications blackout for the past 359 days. China says the Diaoyu Islands are its territory and it reserves the right to conduct law enforcement activities in the area. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin says Beijing hopes all relevant parties will do more to uphold stability. He was rebutting a U.S. military commander's criticism of incursions in the territory, which is also claimed by Japan. The US has welcomed a ceasefire announcement by the Taliban and Kabul government for Eid al-Adha. Special envoy for Afghanistan Zalmay Khalilzad said Washington hopes the occasion will bring Afghans one step closer to sustainable peace. Daily COVID-19 cases in the US have climbed back to over 60,000 with nearly 1,600 deaths. The country's infections tally has exceeded 4.3 million as the death toll crossed 149,000. Meanwhile, Brazil has reported 921 deaths in the last 24 hours, taking the count to over 88,000 with nearly 2.5 million cases. Over in Pakistan, 27 more people have lost their lives, taking the toll to nearly 6,000 with over 276,000 cases. Globally, the virus has claimed some 659,000 lives while infecting more than 16.6 million people. News in detail after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back now for the news in detail. We begin from India, where the troops have martyred two more civilians in the Rajouri district of occupied Kashmir. The occupying forces wounded another civilian during a military operation in the Nowshera area. The troops have sealed all entry and exit points of the area. Police say a cordon and search operation is underway in the vicinity. Indian atrocities in the occupied Kashmir have sharply increased despite the COVID-19 outbreak. The valley has been under New Delhi's crushing curfew and communications blackout for the past 359 days. Pakistan's Foreign Office has strongly condemned the restrictions imposed by Indian authorities on Eid al-Adha prayers in occupied Kashmir. In a statement, the Foreign Office said India is using COVID-19 related restrictions as a ruse to curb religious freedom of Muslims. It urged the international community to take notice of the violation of Muslims' rights in Kashmir. The statement added, India cannot suppress Kashmir's struggle for freedom by such repressive measures. The situation in the region has been tense since India stripped occupied valleys autonomy in August last year and imposed a curfew. Now in Pakistan, 27 people have died from COVID-19 in the last 24 hours, with the death toll rising to 5,892. The Health Ministry says 1,063 new cases were reported as the tally crossed 276,000. Officials say nearly 245,000 people have recovered from the virus so far. The ministry said there are now over 25,000 active cases and 1,179 critical cases in the country. Sindh remains the worst hit province with over 119,000 infections, while Punjab has reported over 92,000 cases. Daily COVID-19 cases in the United States have climbed back to over 60,000 with nearly 1,600 deaths. The country's infections tally has exceeded 4.3 million as the death toll crossed 149,000. Globally, the virus has claimed some 659,000 lives while infecting more than 16.6 million people. More details in this report.
The new coronavirus shows no signs of declining in the Americas. Brazil has reported 921 deaths in the last 24 hours, taking the count to over 88,000 with nearly 2.5 million cases. Brasilia says it is confident of having the Oxford University COVID-19 vaccine in December. Over in the US, healthcare facilities struggle to deal with the enormous strain of cases emerging every day, while President Donald Trump continues to endorse hydroxychloroquine as a viable treatment for the virus.
It's recommendations of many other people, including doctors. Many doctors think it is extremely successful. The hydroxychloroquine, coupled with the zinc and perhaps the zithromycin. But many doctors think it's extremely good, and some people don't. Some people, I think it's become very political. I happen to believe in it.
After Spain, the virus has Germany in its crosshairs as over 3,000 cases have been reported in the past week. Germany has joined the UK in advising its people against traveling to virus-hit Spanish regions.
I can hardly imagine, or rather not imagine at all, is that we will again be introducing border controls all over Germany. I have experience, we both have experience with border controls. Had them at part of our borders with France, Switzerland, Austria and Denmark.
Meanwhile, China has reported 101 new cases of coronavirus, the highest number since April. Of the new cases, 89 are reported from the far western region of Xinjiang. In Australia, Greater Queensland is closing its border to people from Sydney, requiring returnees to spend 14 days in quarantine. Emergency teams have been sent to tackle the virus outbreak to nursing homes in Melbourne, Victoria, as the state has reported over 9,000 cases.
Now, the US has welcomed a ceasefire announcement by the Taliban and the Kabul government for Eid al-Adha. Special Envoy for Afghanistan, Zalmi Khalilzad, said Washington hopes the occasion will bring Afghans one step closer to sustainable peace. Khalilzad said Washington wishes to see Afghan national security forces continue to service the people. He thanked the Afghan forces for their commitment to their country. Meanwhile, the UN mission in Afghanistan has also hailed the announced ceasefire. It said the reductions in violence should now pave the way for a quick start to intra-Afghan negotiations. Moving on, Yemen's government and the Southern Transition Council have agreed to return to a stalled peace deal brokered by Saudi Arabia. STC spokesperson Nizar Haytham said the separatists will give up their dreams of autonomy over southern Yemen to pursue the Riyadh agreement. Haytham said the STC affirms the continuation and deepening of a strategic partnership with the Arab alliance at all levels. Saudi state media said under the resolution the Prime Minister will form a government within 30 days from both northern and southern Yemen. Welcoming the Saudi proposal, Yemen's embassy in Washington said a new governor and head of the security agency will be appointed in Aden. The government said the STC should now work under the leadership of President Mansour Hadi to resolve issues. The Riyadh agreement was negotiated in response to a southern separatist takeover of Aden city in last November. China says the Diaoyu Islands are its territory and it reserves the right to conduct law enforcement activities in the area. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin says Beijing hopes all relevant parties will do more to uphold stability. Wang was rebutting a U.S. military commander's criticism of incursions in the territory, which is also claimed by Japan. The commander of U.S. forces in Japan, General Kevin Schneider, said they can help monitor unprecedented incursions by Chinese ships in the area. He said these intrusions are likely to escalate next month after Beijing lifts a fishing ban in the area. Schneider said the U.S. will help its ally Japan defend against any attack. Tokyo has also accused Beijing of intrusion in waters around the group of islands. Now, China has slammed the U.S. for reckless provocation after both sides ordered tit-for-tat closures of each other's consulate in Chengdu and Houston. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi called for rational communication between the two countries to solve bilateral disagreements. Speaking with his French counterpart, Chinese Minister Wang said China-U.S. relations could fall into the abyss of confrontation. He said the international community should resist any unilateral or hegemonic act by the U.S. Wang also noted both the countries should never allow anti-China elements to overturn decades of successful exchanges and cooperation. Sino-US relations have deteriorated in recent weeks in an intensifying standoff between the two after the closures of their consulates. China says the UK risks pursuing a dead-end policy if it bows to the pressure to undo progress in building relations with Beijing. In a telephonic conversation with his British counterpart, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said both countries should strengthen ties as China has always been an opportunity rather than a threat to the United Kingdom. Wang said London politicized 5G issues and discriminated against Chinese companies by following calls from the US to take a tougher position. For his part, UK's Foreign Minister Dominic Raab said Britain will work to maintain positive, constructive engagement with China, but added that China needs to rebuild trust in the global community. Now, the world's biggest nuclear fusion project, the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, has entered its assembly phase in southern France. The $23.5 billion facility is a collaboration between China, the European Union, India, Japan, South Korea, Russia and the United States. All members share in the cost of construction. The facility will be able to start generating the super hot plasma required for fusion power. Member countries say fusion can be a source of clean, unlimited power that will help tackle the climate crisis. China's President Xi Jinping sent a congratulatory message to the ceremony for the start of assembly of the project. French President Emmanuel Macron said the effort will unite countries around a common good. The United States Navy has criticized Iran as irresponsible and reckless for conducting an exercise involving firing a missile at a replica aircraft carrier in the Gulf waters. In a statement, the U.S. Navy said Iran conducts offensive exercises attempting to intimidate and coerce Washington. It said the Navy is fully capable of defending itself against any maritime threat. Iran held the exercises near the Strait of Hormuz, which is a vital shipping lane for a fifth of global oil output. Now moving on, Russia says 35 out of 133 invited states have confirmed to join the Army 2020 Defense Forum. Russian Defense Ministry official says coronavirus pandemic has complicated preparations for the event. In an interview, head of the exhibition department, Colonel Oleg, said at least 11 states will send high-level delegations to the event. It said this forum will be the first large-scale international exhibition in Russia in 2020 after the quarantine was lifted. The Army 2020 International Military and Technical Forum in Russia will run next month at several practice ranges and military districts. Meanwhile, Russia says it has no plans to rejoin the G7 given its satisfaction with the Group of 20. In a statement, Kremlin spokesperson said President Vladimir Putin has neither taken any initiatives nor made any requests to revive the country's participation. The statement read the group lacks global significance because it excludes China, India, Brazil, Turkey and other countries. It said Russia is satisfied with the G20's effectiveness because the group meets modern economic realities. This comes after German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said Berlin rejected a Washington proposal of inviting Moscow to the G7. More news coming up after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, in Saudi Arabia, Hajj, the annual Muslim pilgrimage to Mecca, has begun following necessary precautions in context of the COVID-19 pandemic. For the first time in the modern era, Muslims from abroad will be unable to attend the pilgrimage due to efforts to contain the coronavirus. This year's event has been limited to some 1,000 pilgrims from within Saudi Arabia, 70% of whom are foreign residents of the kingdom. The pilgrims were required to isolate at home for 7 days before arriving in Mecca. They will have to wear masks and observe physical distancing during a series of religious rites, which are completed over 5 days. Meanwhile, thousands of workers have taken to the streets in Bolivia's El Alto city to protest the delay in the country's presidential election. The Bolivian Workers' Center Union led the demonstrations after September 6 polls were postponed to 18th October due to the coronavirus. The union says presidential candidate Jeanine Áñez and her interim government is using the pandemic to extend its power. It said the conservative administration is persecuting the supporters of former President Evo Morales' movement for socialism. Morales has been exerting his political influence from exile and has called for the election to be held as previously planned. The union also declared an indefinite general strike and mass mobilizations across the country.
We will be here until the end, even if the blood runs. This will be the fault of the de facto president, since she has not complied with the election date and is playing with the people. She's playing with the emotions of the people because we want elections on September 6 either way.
The delayed vote in the rerun of last year's election that sparked violent protests leading to the downfall of the long-term leftist leader Evo Morales. Now, in Mali, 22 people have been killed and 21 others injured as a minibus collided with a dump truck. The accident took place on a national highway near the border with Guinea. In a statement, the Transport Ministry blamed the accident on excessive speed and violation of road rules. Earlier, 20 people were killed on 20th of May after a minibus and truck collided in the south of the country. Travelling by road is still the principal means of transport for people and goods in the landlocked Sahel nation of some 20 million people. A report by conservation group says populations of migratory river fish have collapsed by 76% on average in the last 50 years. This research was conducted by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, WWF, Zoological Society of London and the World Fish Migration Foundation. The groups believe overfishing and loss of habitat are the reasons for this catastrophic decline. The study looked at 247 species of fish from around the world. It found that their populations had declined on average 3% per year between 1970 and 2016. Europe saw the sharpest falls of the region with a drop of 93%, while populations shrunk an average of 84% in Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, Johnny Depp's lawyer says the actor has been the victim of invented allegations and physical violence from his former wife, Amber Heard. Depp's lawyer, David Sherborne, made these remarks at London's High Court on the final day of the actor's 3 weeks libel suit against a British tabloid. Depp is suing news groups, newspapers, publishers of The Sun and one of its journalists over a 2018 article that called him a wife beater. The Pirates of the Caribbean star and his former wife, Amber Heard, both gave evidence at the trial. Depp said he had never been violent towards Heard or any other woman and that she was the one who had attacked him. In closing submissions for Hollywood actor, his lawyer said the paper acted as both judge and jury. Earlier, the Sun's lawyers said there was no doubt Depp had systematically abused Heard. In London, a Rembrandt painting sold for $18.7 million in Sotheby's livestream sale due to the coronavirus outbreak. The sale set a new auction record after a 6-minute bidding battle in the Bond Street sale rooms. The Rembrandt is a self-portrait of an artist as a young man, one of only 3 left in private hands. In addition to the Rembrandt, one of Myra's Dreams paintings, Pencher from 1927 sold for $28.8 million. David Hockney's Perfect Poolscape also made a splash, selling at $6.2 million. Mediterranean Sea View by Banksy, based on the refugee crisis, sold for $2.8 million. The Rembrandt to richer auction closed with a total of $192.6 million. This brought Sotheby's flagship summer sales to almost $1.4 billion. The nominations for the prestigious television awards, the 72nd Emmy, have been announced. Netflix dominated all networks with a record 160 nominations for shows that included Stranger Things, Tiger King and Unorthodox. It was followed by HBO with 107 nominations, including a surprise nod for Zendaya, the 23-year-old star of teen drama Euphoria. Watchmen secured 26 nominations, including Best Limited Series, while Amazon Studios' The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel got 20 nominations. Multiple nominations have also gone to actors of color, including Muslim-American Rami Youssef for his semi-autobiographical comedy named Rami. The Emmy Awards will be announced at a ceremony on 20th of September. Now, European stocks are trading mixed as investors are cautious after U.S. relief package hits an impasse in Washington. Germany's Deutsche Bank reported a net loss attributable to shareholders of 77 million euros, up from last year's 3.2 billion euros. The bank is undergoing an extensive restructuring. Frankfurt's DAX fell fractionally. London's FTSE 100 and CAC 40 in Paris gained marginally. Italy's FTSE MIB fell by nearly 1%. Airplane manufacturer Boeing's shares rose ahead of the company's quarterly earnings report. Analysts have predicted an estimated mean loss of $2.54 per share. Boeing is struggling to bounce back from troubled 737 MAX airliners problems and airline order cancellations as travel industry has been decimated by the COVID-19 virus. The company has missed on earnings per share in the past 3 quarters and on revenue for 2 straight quarters. Boeing shares have been down by 47% in the year to date and saw a 7.1% decline for Dow Industries. And in football, Inter Milan beat Napoli by 2-0 in an Italian Serie A clash at the San Siro. Fullback Danilo De Ambrosio and star forward Lautaro Martinez were on target as the hosts stay second behind the champions Juventus. The hosts went ahead after 11 minutes when De Ambrosio turned the ball from home. Cristiano Biraghi's got back. Napoli created lots of chances, but Martinez scored an incredible long-range goal in the 74th minute to seal the win. Meanwhile, free scoring, Atlanta beat Parma by 2-1 to close in on a 100-goal Serie A tally for the season. The win also extended Atlanta's unbeaten run to 17 league games, and the club will now need 2 more goals to match the record set in 1950. And now let's have a look at the weather updates across the globe. Well, that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news. Take care.